Wow, it is hot here, but the show must go on. Today is a really cool episode. I caught up with Devin Ashby and we talked about the world of YouTube and just products and brands, marketing, all that in general. And I think it's really interesting because in any industry, and especially the outdoors, you have the brands, you have the producers, then you have the consumers, the people using all the gear, going out and using it. But then there's this kind of forgotten middle ground of the content creators, the PR companies, the people who connect the consumers to the producers. And like Devin kind of sits in that middle ground. In some ways, I might say that I do, other people do. It's just like a cool little insight into how things are done, how he decides which products to review, the makeup of YouTube, his revenue streams, how he gets paid, and it applies to a bunch of other industries, platforms, and stuff too. So super interesting interview. I am going on a 70-mile 3-day trip with the Bozeman Run Club over the weekend. I don't think I'll be able to add it to the episode coming out on Monday, but you never know. So with that, thank you for joining the Free Outside Podcast. Let's just get into the episode. Here we go. All right, welcome to the podcast, Devin Ashby. What would you say that you do for a living?
Do you want the textbook answer or do you want the silly answer?
I'd like somewhere in the middle because I think it's pretty cool, and it's like I think we'll just work backwards on how you got there because it's pretty cool what you get to do.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I make videos for YouTube in the backpacking and camping space. So it's funny when I meet new people or when I'm talking to friends that I haven't seen for a bit, or even my mom. Funny story. Even my mom recently was like, I'm not sure I really understand how you make money. Could you tell me how that works? So
yeah, totally.
So,
my
I
parents still expect me to ask them for money too.
Nice. But yeah, I mean, I'm full-time YouTube creator status, which means I'm just slinging as much as I can from a video standpoint to review backpacking gear, camping gear, trip videos. I mean, the standard stuff that you see on YouTube, but I'm doing it on a very consistent basis, 2 videos a week right now. So staying very busy that way. But
how do you schedule that out? Do you have like a pretty big backlog to choose from, or is it like hectic getting something up every week, or how are you doing this year round?
It's pretty hectic, yeah. Although, like, you have to keep in mind, I started my YouTube channel in 2014, so like almost 10 years ago. I think October 2014 is when I uploaded my first video. So I've been doing this for a long time. I kind of have my system all figured out and everything. The stars have aligned of my process of quick edits and comfortable in front of the camera and just my approach to everything. So it doesn't take an excessive amount of time for me to put a video together because I have been doing it for so long. But that could also be a downfall because I'm like maybe too comfortable at this point. Maybe could switch some things up a little bit to make it more exciting. But yeah, there's that. But it's busy. Yeah. Super busy. I mean, I do have 3 kids and a wife as well, so there's that. But I also sew on the side.
Okay.
If you want to, I mean, it is part of my income stream, but I run an Etsy shop selling bags that I make. So I've got my fingers in about every little nook and cranny of the backpacking and outdoor space that you can imagine.
Totally. Yeah. I was doing trail work yesterday and today and was asked what I do for work. And it was like, well, basically everything, and it's 24/7, but pretty flexible at the same time. I don't really know what to tell you that I do. Yeah. It's like nothing, the to-do list will never be empty. And if I don't stop myself, could just do something around the clock. So feel the same way. So I've always wondered with filming YouTube stuff, and especially out in the field like you do a bunch, what do you do when someone is like walking by? Do you keep talking to yourself or talking to the camera and just look a little strange to them? Or do you pause, or what's the method when someone's walking right by you?
Yeah, that's a great question, because this happened just like a few weeks ago. I was on a trip. I was doing a comparison of two different backpacks that are basically the same design, same manufacturer, but slight differences. So I was doing like an infield side by side test, and I had stopped, set up my tripod, and I thought for sure I was like looking both directions. There's nobody. I had a really nice scene behind me. And then I hear just like this trotting of footsteps coming towards me. And I'm in the middle of a sentence and I'm looking at the lens and I'm like, keep it together. I can't, like, I got to finish my thought. And then all of a sudden this trail runner, this girl's just like right up on me. And she goes, sorry, I think I got in your shot. You might want to refilm it. So I certainly did, because you can see her like coming from all the way at the back of the frame, all the way up to me through that like 45 seconds of me talking. So it can be awkward at times when it's a stranger and they just like happen upon you and you're like talking to a camera. I mean, I film in a park that's pretty close to home that looks woodsy and outdoors, but it's like nice manicured grass and a good space, and there's a bike path that goes past, and people are always walking by. And sometimes I've had people walk over to me and they see like, why is there this big like 6-person camping tent set up in this park? Like, what is this guy doing? And he's got his camera out. So
Yeah, that's next
people,
level.
yeah, I've had people approach me and be like, what are you doing? What's going on here?
And then you
So
have to tell them that you're a YouTuber, and then they just cringe.
yeah, and they're like, wait, what? You're filming YouTube on a Wednesday morning? Shouldn't you be at work?
Yeah.
So
So did you just start with YouTube and filming and reviewing gear as like a hobby or a passion? Were you always in the outdoor space? How did you decide to translate passion into sharing it with people?
yeah, that's a great question. Okay, we'll go back to like 2012, 2013. I was working for an indoor climbing facility, and climbing at the time was like everything in my brain. And I was also in college at the same time studying outdoor recreation management. So like everything in my life at the time was like outdoor focused. It's what I'm studying in school, it's what I'm doing for work. And I found myself, because prior to being in the outdoor recreation management program, I was in digital media and was a photography major. So I was studying photography, and I had been doing photography work like freelance for like 6, 7 years at the time. And I found that once I stopped doing freelance photography, that I needed some kind of like creative outlet. And so even though climbing was amazing, my schooling was incredible as well, I still needed something that was like that the artsy side of my brain.
Mhm.
Not that I'm a great artist or anything, but I needed that outlet. And so I was looking at, okay, I'm going to start a blog. That'll date me a little bit, my blog spot.
Yeah, I had one in 2011. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
still up there if
S-
anyone can find it.
Nice, nice. I don't know if Blogspot is still relevant or what. I don't think it is, but
No.
I started with that, and then I thought, well, why don't I film simple videos and post them to YouTube, because then I can embed the YouTube video into the blog, and it'll be like a companion to
Oh yeah.
whatever I write. And little did I know, it just took off from there, and I was like, I'm done writing. I'm just gonna make videos. And so it very much, for those first few years, was very hobby centric.
Mhm.
And then I realized I could do something pretty cool with this, like maybe get some fun gear that I maybe don't have to pay for, because I had several friends working, because I worked in the outdoor industry. I had a lot of friends who also worked in the outdoor industry for like Black Diamond and Goal Zero and Petzl. And so I just reached out. I was like, hey, can I like get a headlamp and share it on my YouTube channel? Can I get a tent or some like power stuff from Goal Zero? And those were some of the first, I guess, like brand deals. They weren't paid, but it was just like free gear that in turn I made a video for it. And that kind of like sparked this whole thing of, this is really interesting. I can get access to gear, I can spend time with it, and then I can make a video about it. And there's like, I get to try cool stuff that maybe I wouldn't have been able to try previously, but that the brand is also benefiting from there being content out there on their product. So
Totally. So like back then when you get, let's say Petzl, a headlamp, do you have any idea how you're going to structure a review or anything? Or is it just like, I'm going to play with this a little bit and then come up with some talking points? Or how do you start from zero on reviewing gear?
yeah, I think I was coming from the mindset of like, in a way, I'm an outdoor professional in the space.
Hmm.
Had been working in the industry, but then also like so many years of time spent in the field. Like I had a pretty beyond basic understanding of how gear functions and development and stuff of it. So I was pretty raw with how I approached gear reviews, but
Yeah.
it always stemmed from, I need to spend time with it in the field before I can actually talk about it. And so like unboxing style videos have never been my approach to how I work with gear, because it's not authentic. It doesn't provide any beneficial information to the viewer. If I'm like, hey, I want to learn about this tent, and it's just a list of the same information I can go read on the website, but it's somebody talking about it, that's not as helpful as like, hey, I spent a week with this tent in these conditions. This is what happened. Here's my experience, et cetera, et cetera. And that makes such a difference in the value that comes out of that product. So that's
Totally.
always been my approach. But I never like, sat down one day and was like, this is how I'm going to structure every single review. It was just based on the idea of, there needs to be some experience backing me talking about this.
Yeah, that's way better. I've written for a couple publications, we'll keep unnamed, that it is so regimented that it feels super forced and like, well, some of these factors, they're completely average and there's no paragraph to write here, but I guess I'll spout out what's online. How do you balance when you work with a brand or get something from a brand and it's going to be leaning towards negative or a negative review of the product? Do you keep it authentic with viewers and the brand just is okay with it? Or how do you balance that with relationships?
Yeah, I love that question. It's kind of like multifaceted, and a lot of things happen behind the scenes that maybe never make it to a video. Sometimes I would say there's a couple dozen products over the years that I've tested that I've either purchased myself or have been given to me from the brand that were just awful. Something failed right out the gate. Like for example, I had a hammock sent to me, and my first time out with the hammock, I was dropped to the ground.
Oh,
It
wow.
was it was not good. So like my thinking goes, because I'm filming it and I have that on film of me like setting it up, sitting in it, and 10 seconds later just right onto my tailbone, and then the pain that came from that afterward and catching my breath. But
Jeez.
I could have approached it like one of two ways. I can either just say, screw it, I'm gonna like blast the company and show my audience that this failed and like you shouldn't use this. But I want to give the brand the opportunity to respond to any issues,
Mhm.
because maybe like I didn't set it up right, or I did something wrong, or there's been a couple instances where something did fail, and then I later found out, oh, that was actually a prototype, and it
Yep.
wasn't a full production product. And so me going on and blasting the company in a negative way can affect my relationship with the brand, but it can also affect the end product for the user if I'm not doing my due diligence. So I don't share, not because I don't want to, but I try to be very critical, but not necessarily take the approach of let me find all the negative things about a product and
Totally.
let's talk about that. I try to really speak again from the experience standpoint. So, I'll tell people in videos straight up, like this this tent is made from nylon, for example,
Mhm.
and I have not been able to test this in the rain. And I will tell people in the video, hey, I haven't been able to test this in the rain, so like don't get after me for not doing a thorough test. In that sense, I live in Utah. We get like 20 days of rain a year. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to do rain testing.
When you
But
get when you get a rainy day, do you just burst out the door to go test like 10 tents?
yes, that totally happened. Not that many tents, but I did have a recent storm came through, and I was like, wait a second, it's like storming out there. I need to test this tent. So I just went and set it up right in my front yard and like took video of it so that I could try to speak to that
Yeah.
standpoint.
That's
So
that's awesome. Most people go inside during a storm, you're running out the door.
yeah, but I don't know. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, totally.
Of
Yeah, I think it's really, I mean, that's the key, especially with how companies work in the outdoor space. If people don't know too, they start like cottage level and maybe one marquee product, but as they branch out, and especially if it's a prototype, and I've tested a lot of prototypes, and the goal for me is to
Mhm.
take them to failure. So if I reviewed them on that, that would be pretty poor. But yeah, if they have one
Yeah.
marquee product and they're coming out with another one, burying the new product could kill a whole company when, the goal is testing, reviewing, that kind of thing. And just with how small these companies are, I think there's a lot of them are in garages and just coming out with new stuff that I don't know, it's probably the first iteration and it improves over time. Even like the Durston tents
Hmm.
is a good example of how far that's like the number one tent on the AT now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll say this too. I think it's important because I do feel like there's a strange stigma with YouTube where people feel like, well, if you only say something nice about it, then you're being paid under the table. You're like following specific guidelines that a brand has given you. Like, if you don't say something negative about a product, then like people ultimately assume, oh, he's just being paid to talk about this, which is very, very like not true.
Mm-hmm.
If a YouTube creator is following proper guidelines and rules with the FTC and everything, you are supposed to declare when something is given to you for free. But also, if you are being paid and you don't disclose that, that's actually illegal. So any under the table payment and stuff, I want to believe that the vast majority of people have more integrity than to just lie to everybody. And I just don't think I don't think that that's actually happening. But the other aspect is there's so many good products out there that it's very rare that I have a very negative experience with a product. There's situations where okay, maybe this isn't as well designed as I would like, or it doesn't have the feature sets that would make it go from like a B plus to a solid A of a product. But I think it is important to understand that design of outdoor gear is so advanced at this point that there's really not that many products out there that like right out the gate are just junk and not good.
Yeah.
Like most of the gear is going to do the job. It's high quality and it's going to.
Where are you getting most products? I think mostly like informational for just blossoming YouTubers out there, but are you reaching out directly to brands at this point? PR companies buying some of it, combination? How did you, and then I guess earlier on too, how did you get so involved on the product side?
Yeah. I've always loved gear. So I've just been a gearhead from the beginning. I love the way that stuff is designed. I love that process of how things get from like a 3D drawing on a computer to an actual physical product. So there's that. But I pretty much either purchase gear myself, or I borrow, or I reach out to a company and request a sample, whether that's direct to a company or with a PR agency that is working with that brand. Like for example, I reached out to the PR company that works with Gregory packs. I wanted to try a couple Gregory packs that were new, and so I said, "Hey, like, would you be willing to send me a couple samples?" And sure enough, they did. Usually, in that case, if I'm requesting a sample, it means that like I'm the one reaching out to them, and so I'm looking for ways in the way that I propose to them of how I would incorporate it into the channel, because ultimately at the end of the day it's marketing, right?
Yep.
I'm just a marketing tool when we're talking about gear. So I have to be careful of like biases and in that aspect, but I want, if I'm reaching out and requesting something, they need to know what's in it for them. So I'll propose like, hey, I'm going on a couple trips and I'll use this pack for these upcoming trips, and they'll be visible in the videos that way. So there's that, and then there's obviously the marketing departments of every brand in the world reaching out, trying to get
Totally.
people on YouTube to talk about their gear.
Yeah.
But then that comes with all sorts of other stipulations, because you don't want to get used as free marketing for a brand, because your time and creativity and everything is of value. So it's just the piecing it all together to make sure that my integrity, like I'm keeping that in play, and being honest and authentic with my viewers, and not just like a sellout of like, oh my gosh, this brand reached out to me, they want to send me stuff, yeah, send it over, and then like they just get free marketing out of it and maybe not as much of an authentic
Yeah.
experience from me. So
Yeah, I want to hit on that really quick. Was there ever, because there was probably a brief year or so where I was excited to get noticed. Did you take on more product like that too? Because it is kind of exciting when companies do notice you, that kind of stuff. Did you have a period like that where it's like, oh yeah, I definitely want all this, and then you step back and it's like, oh yeah, they're getting more benefit than me because they're reaching out, that kind of thing?
yeah, I think for me, yes, there was that for sure, because it's like, holy cow, this company wants to send me a tent. This company wants to send me a really expensive sleeping bag. Like, whoa, this is really cool. But then it's the difference of like, am I doing this as a hobby and this is just fun and exciting for me, versus when you make that shift where you're actually making money and you approach this from a business standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's where that shift happened, of maybe like, this is cool for me and I'm excited about it, to wait a second, Like this company's just wanting to use me as free marketing. And I think as a like a companion comparison, use a photographer, for example.
Mhm.
Somebody that like starts working in the freelance photography, whether they're like a sports action photographer or a wedding photographer, and it goes from like, hey, I'm just doing this as a hobby, and people are gonna maybe not pay me or pay me like $100 for my time, and that's super super cheap, to
Mhm.
like, wait a second, my art is worth something, and so I actually need to charge for this. I need to like take care of myself. And it's that shift of like, hey, like I know we're friends, but you should pay me for this.
Totally.
Or a brand that reaches out to a photographer and they're just looking for like, hey, we'll send you a piece of gear. You're good at photos. The gear is payment essentially, which is not that's not the case. Like
Yeah.
gear is not payment for a service.
Yeah.
It's cool to get gear, but I think
Yeah.
I think there's a parallel there that's important to understand. Of like, at some point, I have to compensate myself for my time if I'm gonna try to run a business. So
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's a huge thing in the outdoors now, and probably for the past 5 years, is this gear is payment thing. And just
hmm
anyone out there who does accept it, it makes it worse and harder for the industry as a whole because there remains that option. Like, I'm sure you see it
yeah,
too. And I get that it's exciting, but like the number of, especially shoe companies, are so just known for this. Like, you get this number of free shoes and you just rep it everywhere. And it's like, well,
yeah,
that doesn't pay money.
yeah, yeah.
Devalues it for everybody else.
Yep. And I think that'll be a forever ongoing issue, and the best thing that we can do, because I think we're still in the infancy of where the type of media, and even as much as like the influencer term is so prevalent, like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, like it's still really, I think, early on compared to like traditional media of newspapers and magazines and everything, where, yeah, of course, you're going to pay a lot of money to have a spread of images in a magazine. And it's like, oh, wait, no, I can just ask this person, send them a piece of gear, and like I'll get more return out of it. I get more eyes on it, and I don't have to spend any money because the person's excited about getting free gear. And I think there will always be that aspect to it until we're a little bit further along and brands and everything are a bit more mature in understanding that, okay, YouTube is a magazine, TikTok is a magazine,
Yeah.
and it's now traditional media, and that stuff doesn't exist anymore that previously was traditional. And so and then there'll be the next thing,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's crazy that you say that because it's so true. Like when I write, I get paid double or triple for print based articles, which get less eyeballs than articles
hmm
online. So it is kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
backwards, and social media gets more than, because you'd have to get to someone's website to get the print or the online version. So social media gets
yep,
even more, and it's flipped backwards for the compensation for each one. So it's a weird
yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think part of the frustrating thing with YouTube is compensation is so focused on the number of views that
Hmm.
that it's going to get, and it's hard to establish essentially like a base price for my time. Like
Yeah.
what is my versus, okay, you can guarantee you're gonna get 20,000 views on this video, or even 5,000 views. Like, what is that worth? Well, CPM decides what that's worth, but is that based off of views only, or is there views plus my time and the value of me as a human and what I'm putting into
Yeah.
into creating the product. And so I think that'll flesh out over time from that standpoint on the business side of things. And it's usually how I try to approach any brand deals that I do, sponsorship agreements. I'll try to explain like, hey, my time is valuable. There should be a base price for you essentially hiring me to spend time with the product, and then we can talk about CPM. I think I'll get 10,000 views on this video or 250 views.
Yeah.
And that is worth X dollars.
Okay. So yeah, let's just go into that. What are the revenue streams through, let's just take YouTube on its own and take out the brand deals. On a YouTube review of a product, what are the revenue streams that come in from that? Just a product review, general YouTube video.
Just on the product review?
Just on that video,
just on that video. I mean, a simple standpoint would be YouTube AdSense. So whatever ads play on the video, whatever that CPM ends up being, you'll get a payout based off of the number of views that the video actually gets, and that'll be ongoing. Sometimes, I mean, that's another rabbit hole we could go down, where a brand says, well, we're only going to look at the first 72 hours of a video being live, and that's what's of value to us.
Wow.
But then, like, I've had some brands where I've gone back to them because they want to do another video with me, and I'm like, look, this video over a 6-month period started out slow, and then it took off and went from like 6,000 views to 40,000 views. There's a value in that, right? So where do I get paid in that? Yeah, I get paid on that back end from the AdSense, but there's also value to the brand that all of a sudden that product is now being searched on YouTube. It's getting a lot of attention. A lot of eyes are seeing it. That's different than the 72-hour period before, right?
Yeah.
So that's a interesting part of the revenue side of things. And then second would be affiliate sales. So if there's an opportunity for you to have an affiliate link that people came to your video, clicked on the link, you were basically getting that finder's fee for sending people to the brand's website, and then the conversion for them purchasing that product. So those are going to be the two main ways that I post a product review that I'll get paid from it. And then a sponsorship as well, a brand deal would be.
How do you
how
do you balance brand deals, or I guess we could just call them sponsorships since it's more understandable, with reviewing products? Like, let's take Peak Refuel. How do you balance that with, do you not review other meals companies, or how does that work into it?
I think that muddied a little bit between the line of like being sponsored versus an ambassador.
Totally. Yeah.
So from a YouTube standpoint, I look at it at a sponsorship as the brand is paying me as the creator talk about their brand, talk about the product. They're using me as the marketing tool to talk about it. So it could be everything across the board in that case. Like, I did a sponsored video that included a new power station, like a portable solar power station recently. And part of that agreement was to not talk about any other brands in that. So kind of like an exclusivity. But other brands don't really care. It's pretty contingent on every single brand is different in how they approach working together. Sometimes it's a 30 to 90 second integration and just an ad read within a video. And that's separate from the product. But I guess going back to your question a little bit, so if a company says, hey, we want a dedicated video of X product and we'll pay you this much money to make the video, I will tell them that this is not a review. Like, I can't review something and be paid at the same time. but I will happily talk about the product, and I will explain to my audience that this video is sponsored by this. I'm going to talk about the product and my experience with it, but I'm not going to recommend to you whether or not you should buy it. And so I honestly try to not do anything that would be like a full-on dedicated video
Yeah.
of a product, because then there's just too many biases. Like, and people kind of get frustrated with that when they're like, well, this is just a commercial. And that's a whole other discussion that is kind of interesting. People get so bent out of shape about, I can't believe you're just talking about this product. And it's like, man, athletes in the professional world, like, they're paid millions of dollars to talk about products, and maybe you only know Nike golf balls because of Tiger Woods. Like,
that's definitely the only reason they know Nike golf balls.
Give me a break. I'm putting food on the table for my kids here. Like,
yeah,
don't get so.
All right, let's
bent out of shape about it.
Lighten it a little bit. What do you do with all the products that you have reviewed in the past? Like, you can't possibly have like 10 storage lockers, right? Like, what do you do with all the past products?
Yeah. Sometimes they go back to the brand. There's occasions where there's a limited number of samples, I have time with it, and then the brand requests to have it sent back. So there's that. Most of the stuff I get to keep. It's just part of, now it's a used product. It doesn't do us any good to like have a used product come back to us that we can't resell. Some of the stuff I give away and just gift to people. And then sometimes I will also sell things. But I'm very careful about what I do choose to sell. Usually it's, if I purchase it myself, then sure, I'm happy to sell it. After a certain amount of time that I've had with a product and the brand is okay with it, then I'll sell it as well at a pretty like steeply discounted price, so that people are getting a good piece of gear for a really, really good price.
Yeah.
That I am just not going to make enough use out of. And I've used that argument quite often to like, hey, I have like 20 tents sitting on my shelf. This model is now discontinued. It's not available anymore. I'm going to sell it at a really low price because it doesn't do me any good to have something to review and compare against other things if it's not relevant in the market anymore. So I'll part with it or gift it from that standpoint to get somebody into a really good piece of gear that is a huge discount.
Yeah. So the kids at Christmas just open up like a new camp chair, a new stove, a new tent. Like, that's what you mean when you say gift it?
Sometimes. No,
no.
So
I've
had occasions. Yeah, I've had occasions because I teach intro to backpacking classes at a university.
I read that on your website. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've shared gear with students, but there's also that aspect as well where I hold on to a lot of stuff because I do teach, and I have been able to outfit many students with gear to borrow for the trips that I take them on. That's good lightweight gear that they don't have to pay for. They don't have to like rent it or anything. So it's kind of a way for me to give back that way as well.
Cool.
Since college students are always starving, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely was myself. All right, let's kind of go down that avenue as we move towards the end. How do you teach someone to backpack? How do you start someone out in intro to backpacking?
Yeah.
Because I can't even remember starting backpacking myself. So how would you teach someone?
The basics. I mean, think about what you do to prep to go on a trip, and I approach it from two angles. One is the trip planning. So how do you plan a trip and know where to go, and then all of the logistics of permits and rules and regulations and how to map the route, tools to map the route, how to just put all of that information together so that you have this whole trip plan that allows you to be in the field and execute with success instead of just going in blind. Like, never been backpacking before. I don't know where to go. Okay, then let's start with Google and say backpacking in Montana, backpacking in Utah, and then start narrowing down what you want, and then figuring out all the ins and outs of trip planning from that standpoint. And then the second approach is, once your trip plan is in place, how do you approach your gear? And that's going to be contingent on like what the trip requires, right? Based off of weather, seasonality, and that kind of stuff. So planning your gear around that, how to plan the gear, how to choose the right gear, and that's just kind of like the basic thing. How to pack your pack correctly.
Oh, totally. Yeah, didn't even think of that. What like base weight or total pack weight do these students have on their first backpacking trip? I'm wondering, like, by the book, what is like the perfect beginner weight that you would say they end up with?
I've never had, and I stopped weighing packs. I used to, like, in my first few semesters, I'd bring a scale and I'd like weigh everybody's packs. And then I realized, let's not do that, because what if I have, like, I weigh my pack and it's 22 pounds, let's say. I've never had a pack that light working as a guide, but then I have somebody that's like 45 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's just like an instant like gut punch of, well, I'm too heavy and I'm doing this wrong. And that kind of
you've
thing.
already
So
destroyed everything you're teaching them if you're doing that.
Right. Yeah. And that's been a philosophy in general. Like I'm going on a trip tomorrow and my base weight is like 18 pounds and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So
I've
stopped
packing
I've
a book
caring
to
about
read
weight.
on a backpacking trip is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would say on average between 30 and 35 pounds is usually where people are at. I've not ever had anybody over 45 pounds.
That's pretty good. I started with 55.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the difference of like, I'm just kind of figuring this out on my own versus having an instructor that's saying, leave these things at home. Like, don't bring XYZ because you don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to have a change of clothes every single day. So don't bring 4 shirts. Don't bring 3 pairs of pants. Like, have something to sleep in, have something to hike in. That's it. It's those subtle things that make a big difference in somebody feeling like, okay, yeah, I guess I really don't need this, and then naturally they're lighter weight that way.
Okay, I have like two more questions for you. They're kind of combo questions. So what are so I guess we'll start with, what are a couple cool new products, and then also a couple cool places to go backpacking in Utah, since it's my favorite state to backpack in.
Awesome. I'll start with the second question first. My passion is the Escalante and Capitol Reef area of Utah, just that entire region. It's a passion project of mine, which I won't go into detail here. The desert is my happy place, and there's so many cool things to see. The variety of terrain is phenomenal. Like, Escalante it's incredible. If you've not been, make it a point to go spend some time in Escalante. And Capitol Reef is my Capitol Reef is my favorite park in Utah. I won't say it's my favorite national park ever, but it's my favorite Utah park. It's an incredible place. But then some really cool gear. Let's see here. So I've been really excited about, and I'm going to call out a specific brand, the designs the tarp tent has been coming out with recently. I've just found like Henry's approach to design to be really intriguing. He created the dipole tent, and the dipole 1 DW I think is currently like my favorite tent, but I'm excited because the newest tent that they're releasing is the dipole 2 DW. So 2-person size, much larger. And I also really like appreciate the value and the price points that Tarp Tent is able to accomplish. Makes their product super approachable, as opposed to like everything being a $700-800 Dyneema tent. These are $300-400 tents that are very lightweight, very high performance, and just a really good product. So that's what stands out to me. I'm excited about that dipole 2 DW that's coming out here soon. So
Totally. Okay, last question. What advice would you give someone that's wanting to get into, whether it's photo, video, just outdoor content? I guess you've solved the problem of figuring out a way to make a career out of it. What advice would you give someone?
The first would be consistent. Like if you want, and I think that applies with anything, right? If you're starting a business, if you're starting a hobby, like be consistent with it so that you can gather as much data as possible in what's working, what's not working. If you're just kind of flippant with it and you post 2 videos here, wait 6 months, post a video that doesn't give you a lot of information on like what is working, what's not working. But I would also say like be you and just have fun. Don't get so caught up in being an algorithm chaser. And I've found myself finding a lot more enjoyment out of my content by experimenting more and just having fun and realizing that like, yeah, this is a full-time job. Like I posted a video today of me backpacking with my daughter, and that video is a ton of fun for me. And I know right out the gate, it's not going to be my best performing video. It's not going to pay me a lot. And that's fine. Like the next video, we'll see how it does. But I'm just like enjoying the process, and I'm working hard to see how I can continue to like enjoy the passion and not be like, well, I didn't get 10,000 views on this video, so I'm a failure. There's been periods of time with that, but that's my advice. Just like be you, have fun, enjoy the process, and be consistent.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that and just say, like, the progress is measured in years, not weeks. Like, it takes a lot of build up to get. I mean, you don't even find your voice for a while. Like, I'm sure you're totally different now. Yeah. Okay, I lied. I have one more question. How many subscribers behind Mr. Beast are you?
Oh man. I saw a video today that he just became like the highest subscriber like channel ever on YouTube, which is crazy.
Probably
so, any
subscribing.
What is he anywhere, like over 200 million or something?
Yeah, he might even be approaching 300,000. Yeah. So you'll be there in a couple years.
Be there in a couple years. Man, I've been doing this for 10 years and I haven't even hit 10 or 100,000 subscribers. Like that should be the indicator that subscribers don't matter. Like,
well, a number of people say that you're one of the most knowledgeable people with gear in the outdoor space. So you got that going for you within the industry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think
it's not me. It's the people. So I don't need this.
Yeah. It's a good point that subscribers really don't matter. You can have a good time and be successful and enjoy yourself and making content at 2,000 subscribers and still be doing awesome stuff. So
yeah, you don't have to give away $100,000 every video. It's a lot less stress.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks, man. This has been great.
Yeah, this was fun. And thank you for listening. Thank you for coming. Thank you for all the reviews, the kind words. Remember to follow. And with that, let's just move into the weekend. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. I will be back on Monday for a solo episode. So with that, my friends, stay elite, my friends.